Hello and welcome to Filibusters in Fine Print, where AMGA's public policy team gives you the insider view on healthcare regulations and legislation. Thanks so much for joining us for the latest from Washington, D.C.
Good morning and welcome to Filibusters in Fine Print, AMGA's public policy podcast, where we print all the policy news that's fit to print. That was reiterative. Anyway, and thank you for all being here. We're here with our expert panel as always. And let's go to our left first. Who's here today?
Hi, Alicia Sawyer, Government Relations Assistant.
Hi, Lauren Latney, Director of Government Relations, trying to survive the heat.
Jamie Miller, Ambassador Goodwill here.
All right. And of course, our producer, Mike I, over in the corner. And he just turned off the air conditioning. So this will be a quick podcast. I can promise you. Anyway, thanks for being here. So I did not have a question for the day, but Jamie Miller came up with one, and that is, what was your first car? Alicia?
I'll go first. My first car was a 2001 Volkswagen Cabrio that I inherited from my grandmother. It was awesome to be 16, 17, driving around Florida on A1A with the top down.
A1A, Detroit W, sorry. Vanilla Ice, for those of you who don't know.
But it was awesome.
Lauren is smirking.
Yeah.
He flips houses now.
He does.
Middle age is different.
Truth. Just y'all wait. Alicia. we sort of dashed her dream. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Oh.
Are you?
Oh, middle-aged. No,
I'm
no,
middle-aged.
no.
No, you're not.
I was
Everything
kind of joking.
hurts.
Okay. Good.
Sorry.
Lauren, how about you?
A gold Nissan Altima the Altima. It was a car that nearly broke my parents' marriage. Because my dad bought it without telling my mom.
Oh.
And I was in D.C. I was at a leadership conference, and my mom calls and is like, "Your dad bought you a car," and that was it. And I was like, "Oh no, that's not great." That they were celebrating 45 years next week. So
congratulations!
They got through it. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. How are you, Jamie?
I don't tell the year, but I drove a 13-year-old Jeep Cherokee. Bad paint job, been burned out in the sun in South Carolina. No tent, vinyl chairs. Had no automatic locks, no steering wheel. I mean, the steering wheel kind of worked. It wasn't power steering. And I had a tape deck, and I had 3 tapes, Rage Against the Machine, because as a white kid in the South, I have so much to rage about. And then I had Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer, and I would play those 3 tapes constantly. And in the car, my parents still have it, and it still breaks down at stoplights. So that's fun.
Sounds good.
It's a fun car for kids.
That sounds like a perfect car. And like you, I got my car from my grandfather. It was a 1974 white Thunderbird, all leather seats, and they could hit 100 across the American Legion Bridge.
Were you in Smoking the Bandit? Was that?
I was Tom DeLuise. All right, well, let's get going. Okay, so today our topic is budget reconciliation. We've done this
Senate edition.
Limited. Well, we'll see. We've done a few of these on reconciliation, but it keeps going.
Yeah.
And so there have been some major movements around reconciliation the past couple weeks. So who wants to tackle that first?
Yeah, it's weebling, it's wobbling, but will it fall down? I don't know.
That's a good 80s toy back then.
Yes. Has Trump turned into just like a stern stepfather at this point? Because he was on Truth Social and he basically said to the Senate, no vacation till you pass this bill. And I was like, so you told the kids that you can't have, you can only have $1 or $2 for Christmas. There's no vacation. This is not, it's not a fun family comedy in the Senate right now. Mm-hmm. Everyone's sort of trying to figure out what to do next. And so right now, the Senate is slowly sort of dropping their pieces of what reconciliation looks like in the committees. Last week, we saw Senate Finance roll out their portion of the bill, which typically covers Senate Finances, does all the tax-based stuff. So your healthcare stuff is going to be in there. And what we saw was something that was kind of worse. And Jamie will talk about that a little bit more, but the state of play is if you do something worse than the House bill and then people tell you about it and they say they don't like it, the question now is, will it get fixed or will people sort of double down? And it seems like one of the things that we're learning is the power of the parliamentarian and what that looks like in determining what's going to move forward with the Senate finance bill and what's not. I call the Senate finance Senate parliamentarian sort of like playing Uno with my 90-year-old grandmother, right? Like you have to know the rules of the game and you determine that amongst yourselves.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yes.
For viewers who may not know who the Senate parliamentarian is
Yes.
or what that position does?
Yeah. So they're the game warden. Right? So I'm playing Uno with my grandmother, and with our thing, I can do a draw 2, draw 2, draw 4, reverse, draw 2, right? And then I'm out. But like, if you read the instructions, that's not how you play it. The parliamentarian is like the person who tells you before Uno what you can play and what you can't play. And so right now, the Senate Finance Bill is going through something called a Byrd Bath. This was created by former Senator from West Virginia, Robert Byrd, who's like, you know what? If we're going to do reconciliation, which was initially about deficit reduction, let's make sure that we're keeping the integrity of the Senate and we're making sure the rules are followed. He had 6 rules. Essentially, it boils down to 2. You can't add to the deficit and you can't touch Social Security. Parliamentarian is the person that goes, all right, I'm going to look at every portion of this bill to make sure that we're following the rules that you guys set. Now, Senate can change those rules if they have 3/5 of a vote, 60 votes, but they've never done it. Because, again, you're trying to keep the integrity of the process. So what we're seeing now is senators realizing, and we found out today, that the parliamentarian is looking at certain portions of this Medicaid bill and saying this is not birdable, which means like this does not follow into the game book that you guys keep saying that is what we have established on this. And so a lot of your Medicaid portions that we have seen in terms of like provider taxes, all of this stuff, they're saying that's not birdable. And so typically under reconciliation, you just need a majority vote. If it's not birdable, you need 60 votes. Republicans don't have 60 votes in the Senate. They would need Democrats to cross over, who are definitely not going to do that.
No.
And so they're either going to have to rewrite the bill, which is possible, or they're going to have to kind of make other changes to it. But the thing is, Dad's saying, I want this bill done before July 4th. Are we going to have enough time to do that? Will we see that deadline, or will there not be any vacation for all the kids and kiddos?
And there was some talk earlier about this going into August. Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility. Congress, I mean, like you saw the House side being like, we don't like any of this stuff either. We have issues with the Senate versions of the bill. We also read it after we passed it, and like turns out there's some stuff that we don't like, and so we might want to open it up as well. What seemed like, we're gonna have this done by July 4th, fireworks, water guns, all that stuff might be August. In the summer school, we're tired and then slouching toward the end of a fiscal year.
Okay. We'll find out. So you mentioned several times the differences between the House version of reconciliation and the Senate Finance Committee version.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of those differences so our audience knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just talking about the House version in general, there was around $700 billion in Medicaid cuts. The Senate version, when Lauren talks about making it worse, it created more savings in the Medicaid system, around $900 to maybe $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts. Whether or not you agree with the policy on that, it's harder to get more Republicans to vote for. There's been a Josh Hawley from Missouri, Murkowski from Alaska, who openly admitted she might change parties.
Tom Tillis from North Carolina.
Tom Tillis has basically been telling leadership this is going to be. So it baffles me as a former House staffer that the Senate bill became more aggressive. But from the Medicaid side and the House bill, there was provider tax provision that was rather vanilla. And now the provider tax policy is going to basically decrease from 6 to 3.5%. And expansion states and non-expansion states will be grandfathers. There's the state-directed payments that's going to basically impact both states, both types of states, non-expansion and expansion. That's going to create savings. And then the work requirements, there are a little bit more exceptions, but now the work requirement used to be under the House package that if you're an adult with a dependent, who's under 18, you still get access to Medicaid services. But the Senate version said if your child's over 14 now, you're not going to get access to Medicaid. So that's gonna. We argue that as a cut because less people in the system is as a cut to the system, and that's a debate we're having a lot with Congress these days. Is you're not cutting benefits, but you are actually cutting people off the program. And then there was 2 provisions in the bill, Medicaid DISH. Those cuts were delayed for 2 years in the House. The Senate decided not to do that. And then Medicare conversion factor relief tied to MEI, that got removed as well. So the Senate is basically trying to make it more conservative, but the bill still costs over $3 trillion. They're just trying to create more savings. But as I mentioned, you could potentially lose some Republicans. There's discussion about the provider tax policy that Lauren mentioned with the Byrd Bath. Right now, it's subject to a Byrd overruling, and we'll see if they change they'll probably just change the legislation because, as Lauren mentioned, they don't have 60 votes to actually prove this. There's also discussion about a provider relief fund, some sort of like $15 billion program to help rural hospitals, which is one way to get Republicans to vote for the bill. But you're cutting the system by $1 trillion and you're throwing $15 billion into it. That's not sure if that's going to help certain Republicans like Tillis talk to his constituents in North Carolina. But I think, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So let's touch on the Part B conversion factor fix too, because that's important to our members. So in the House bill, they had a conversion factor fix, right? Mm-hmm. And a little more on that, if you don't mind. And then it was stripped from the Senate bill. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was about around $9 to $10 billion, and it was a update tying to the Medicare Economic Index for the first year. And then after that 1 year, they had another 9 years of, 10% of the Medicare. So it was a step in the right direction because usually the conversion factor fix every year costs between $1 to $2 billion. So Congress did the 10, but as we talked to people on the House side, they were saying this is a place marker. We want to help physicians and then eventually do some sort of macro reform. But that was $10 billion that could have helped patients and providers who's been subject to over 8% cuts over the last 4 years.
Okay, so that's right now. That's out.
That's out.
So in the Senate. So we will see what happens with that.
Because it costs money.
And indeed, as you mentioned, it was a good first step tying the Part B conversion factor to some sort of inflationary index. But obviously, 1, we need to get that back in, and 2, we need to do some additional work on that part of the Medicare system as well.
And when we talk about savings, because this is actually something has come up before with our members, it's like, oh, well, this is saving money, this would go back to the system. Savings is defined a little different this time. Savings meaning this would go toward a tax cut for something else. And so when you're thinking about people saying, oh, there's going to be savings in the Medicare program, those savings will be used to pay for something that's non-healthcare related. And there's no such thing as true savings if you're going to cut people from an insurance program and then expect if those people traditionally don't even qualify for regular healthcare to be able to pay for healthcare. And so whatever those savings are, which are not really existed, will just lead to, and our survey has said this over and over again, more people going to the ER, more people delaying care because of the fact that they don't have health insurance, and then an increase in premiums and increase in healthcare costs for all of us in order to cover that. So there's no such thing as savings here. It's only more stress to an already stressed system.
I agree with you there. And the level of uncompensated care for our members is going to skyrocket. There is no doubt, because you can create savings, quote unquote, but you're not going to reduce demand. So demand will spike, and so will save. So anyway, yes, the math does not work.
Math's not math.
Indeed. So math I like that. My last math class was 1982. Okay, so Alicia, what is AMGA doing on this, frankly, really, really important issue?
We're out there. We're in the streets making our voices heard. We are
taking it to the streets.
And Doobie Brothers outside.
I'm always accidentally teeing Jamie up to a little tune.
Oh, really?
Chet's the earworm guy. He's got the good songs.
But We released a statement on June 17th, like less than 24 hours after the Senate Finance Committee released their budget proposal, and we really hammered home emphasizing how the draft legislation will shift costs to emergency rooms and affect patients outside of just the Medicaid population. This isn't an isolated impact. It's going to affect people from all socioeconomic classes throughout the U.S. And of course, we shared that letter with all of our Senate contacts. It's on the AMGA website. If you haven't seen our statement yet, check out the newsroom. And on the newsroom, you'll also see AMGA in the news. And we've been in the news. We've been talking to people. Lauren's had interviews. Chet's statement's out there.
It is? Great.
Yeah. You're out there.
Good.
Our Medicaid cuts survey and what AMGA as an association has to say is really being heard right now and picked up. So read those articles, check us out. We were in the Washington Post.
We were.
Pretty
That's right.
cool.
And take that information and share it with your elected representatives.
Please. And so after that, I got together our grassroots letter. We shared that with all of the councils. The grassroots letter highlights our Medicaid survey, which is really the string tying all of our work together, and that's thanks to the participation of AMJ members. We need to know what's going to happen so that we can share that. And so we got that grassroots letter out. If you don't have it, contact me. I would love to send it to you. And I can get you the information for your Senate office. I expect we'll probably do another grassroots letter if this moves back to the House. So you'll be hearing a lot from us on grassroots engagement moving forward. So we really look forward to your participation there. And then we had Capitol Hill Day recently. And so we had people in offices talking, advocating on behalf of the cuts, against the cuts.
And the Medicare Part B.
And Medicare Part B, of course. Those were two of the most discussed issues. And so we're doing a lot of work right now. And so we would really appreciate if you helped us. Get in contact with us. We're all a team here. Join the policy team. You'll be an honorary member.
And sure. We would be happy to have you involved with us. And thanks, Alicia.
Yeah.
We have about 2 minutes left. Just a couple quick questions to end this podcast, but it's such an important issue. So what is the patient impact of this reconciliation bill? Let's stick with the Senate Finance version.
I would just say, according to our Medicaid cuts survey and Senate Finance provisions with provider tax, state-directed payments, there's going to be less money in the system. And as Lauren said, you take something out, you don't put it back into like a dish extension or something like that. It's going to impact patient care. And actually, a lot of our clinics will have to be closed. A lot of providers will have to be put on furlough. And so in our cuts impact survey, which we've talked about numerous times, we are trying to educate. And I say there's a lot of middle of the road members, but also like Holly, who's not middle of the road, who are like very shocked when you tell them that this is going to impact more people than just Medicaid. And I think that's the key you need to tell members of Congress.
You also think about, we don't know what the CBO score is for Senate Finance yet, but we do know what the CBO score is for H.R. 1, which is less cuts than the Senate Finance bill. And they're looking at 16 million people getting dropped off and not having health care and adding $3.4 trillion to the deficit. So these are real numbers. And again, if it's the House bill is what is considered less than in terms of cuts than the Senate Finance bill, I can't imagine what the CBO score is going to be on this.
Yeah, I think that's why people throw around trillion.
Yeah.
Back of the envelope calculation, but I think trillion sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Considering what the changes that are made. Okay, how's this? So we are reconciliation all day, all the time. Well, not Daryl, who does rec stuff, but the four of us here. Once this goes, then we have a government funding bill. The government stops its funding of itself September 30th. Is that right?
That's right.
So then what? What's in play then?
We have telehealth.
Telehealth,
still in play.
Yeah.
Telehealth is an extremely popular position on the Hill. People support telehealth, but people don't want to pay for it. And it's going to be kind of hard to talk about telehealth. Or maybe they're going to look for some sort of panacea if there's so many cuts that are going to be made to the healthcare system, especially when you're hearing our members saying, like, we might not continue this. This is a patient benefit. We might not be able to continue this if we don't have consistent funding. And keeping the government open is also very important. And so we're just thinking about all of those things that are going to be expiring. And there's no sleep till December, I think, for both Congress and for us.
And there's provisions in the Elon Musk bill he killed about extending the APM bonus, beyond the next year, and then also extending the hospital home program, also doing a extension of the Medicaid dish cut delay. So there's a lot of things, and we'll still be working with Congress, and we've sought assurances, especially with like the GOP Dot Caucus, that they want to address the conversion factor.
Right. If reconciliation doesn't address the Part B funding cut, then we got to do it.
Yeah.
It's September 30th. Okay, that doesn't make sense. All right, we're at 20 minutes and 22 seconds, and Mike is getting anxious.
You'll turn the air conditioner off.
Yeah, it is really hot in this room for all of y'all that are listening, all three of you. One final question. Midterm impacts. 2020, is that 6? Yeah, 2026.
Next year.
Thank
Coming
you.
up.
Right.
Next year.
How does this play? Are folks worried on either party?
Polling's bad. People like Medicaid, apparently. People like making sure that people have insurance, because I love selfishly, I want you to have insurance because I don't want you to make my insurance go up. And so I think people are starting to realize that they want to love selfishly as well. I mean, so the numbers aren't looking good. Republicans privately, Hawley's publicly acknowledging this. Mike Johnson's publicly acknowledging that this is going to be a big impact. Medicaid cuts matter, which is why your voice matters so much.
Yeah, and beyond Medicaid, there's about 30 or 40 House seats that are up for grabs. The rest of them are pretty set. But they're in like Long Island, parts of New York, where the SALT tax is really important. If they don't fix that, I think a lot of these Republicans could lose their seats, and it could go Democrat. So we'll have to see. And then there's going to be some far right-wing conservatives that are going to be in trouble because they may extend the debt limit indefinitely or for years. So it's going to be hard to see kind of what sticks. But I mean, I would say when we're talking to people who we thought were strong supporters of Medicaid, they keep telling us that they have to stop the largest tax increase in history. They have to. That's their foremost priority. And we're like, okay.
They're framing this as a tax bill, not a healthcare bill.
Correct.
That's right. Alicia, final thoughts?
I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens. The bill has some provisions that go into effect before midterms, some that go in after. So I think it depends on what the impact is to their constituents.
Okay. And quite candidly, Democrats have got to get their act together also for 26.
The line's also eating their faces, they realize.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Yeah. With that, we will wrap this up. And I can't say things are skibbity right now, but we're going to keep fighting the fight. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks for joining us for Filibusters in Fine Print. This podcast was brought to you by AMGA. For more information about AMGA's advocacy efforts, visit amga.org/advocacy.